Well, the title race seems to be living day by day at this point. Arsenal have beaten Chelsea 2-1 in a very weird game, but this game had heavy emphasis on it because yesterday, Man City got the job done against Leeds away from home to put the pressure on Arsenal. So this was a must-win game for Arsenal again, and I feel like from now until the end of the season, it's gonna be like this week in week out, where teams just these two teams especially just have to grind it out, win. That they cannot afford to slip up, otherwise they'll just give the other person the advantage. And I feel like this game specifically, you could feel the tension. You could feel the tension, whether it's from minute 1, minute 30, minute 40, minute 70, whatever it was. Arsenal Chelsea, a derby, and looking into this game, I mean, heading into it at least. Obviously Arsenal are favorites. I don't think they've lost to Chelsea in the last like 4 years or something, which is ridiculous. So it's a very one-sided derby, you could call it. But if you actually watch this game today, I actually think this was probably the fairest it's been in quite a while. Obviously, Arsenal faced Chelsea earlier this season in the Carabao Cup, where Arsenal got the better of them twice. And earlier in the season, 10-man Chelsea, similar to today, played Arsenal at the Bridge, but that game ended 1-1. And honestly, I mean, today is just a bit of a weird game. A game decided by set pieces. All three goals coming from set pieces. It had a red card, it had keeper errors, it had defensive errors. But if you guys are new to the channel, make sure you leave a like, subscribe, comment down below your thoughts. If you're an Arsenal fan, if you're a Chelsea fan, who do you think will win the Premier League? Will Chelsea, get top four, because they're currently, I believe, 6 points off of it, which is absolutely insane. But it's probably worth starting on the initial set piece goal. Saliba scores the opener 21 minutes into the game, and of course, it came from a set piece, and it's starting to become just routine now. It really is. It's starting to become routine for Arsenal. I feel like when Arsenal just don't click, their attack honestly was quite average today. Very, very average today, in my opinion. They didn't really string great attacks together. So obviously, when that doesn't click, their reliance goes towards set pieces. At this point of the season, there's no point in criticizing that. There isn't, because the Arsenal have done what they have to be at the top of the table for a reason. So there's no point of like looking into their set pieces as if it's like a bad thing. If anything, it should be more respected, because the fact that they've made it this far with not having the greatest attack and powering through teams through set pieces or whatever is actually very impressive. They go ahead 1-0. They take the lead versus Chelsea. But honestly, for that first half, I thought it was quite even. Chelsea obviously having more of the ball today, but I feel like their attacking potency isn't as great as Arsenal's as well. I actually thought, for most of this game, Chelsea were in it. I actually thought they were in it. They, despite being a man down, which I'll get to, I thought for the first half particularly, they did trouble that Arsenal backline. João Pedro showing his hold the play ability against Gabriel. I thought the setup with Palmer was confusing. He obviously started off on the left for some reason instead of on the right. Pedro Neto was on the right. But I think that was kind of to disrupt Arsenal's defense. You kind of saw that at times. Arsenal were confused on whether, Rice should be marking Palmer, Saliba should be marking Palmer. And then often at times, Palmer would be picking up a lot of big half spaces where he'd have an ocean of grass to run into. But unfortunately, didn't really do much with it. I was actually quite disappointed with Palmer's performance today, because you'd expect him to do a lot with a lot of that space ahead of him. I feel like that's the thing with Chelsea. I feel like, they tactically set up very well. I thought they set up very, very well today against Arsenal. They practically nullified any sort of open play chance against them. But just, I feel like on the other end, going forward on their end, they also do have some of their problems, just inconsistent attacks. You'd often see that João Pedro was just left on an island half the time. The supporting runners wouldn't actually make runs. And the times that they actually make some sort of runs, they'd create some sort of half chances out of it. So I feel like Chelsea did have some of their issues going forward today, but ultimately I thought this was a very even game between the two sides. It was very physical, very aerially dominant. Like I said, there wasn't much open play chance creation. A lot of it was through set pieces. Similar to how Chelsea troubled Arsenal at the Bridge in terms of their set piece play, the same thing happened again today, with Chelsea scoring just before halftime, and they equalized through an Nketiah own goal. But honestly, I gotta give credit to that Reece James delivery, man. Honestly, Reece James today was probably Chelsea's best player because of how dangerous he was able to be despite being a right back. I thought his deliveries from the right side were ridiculous. Corner deliveries were obviously very, very good. But even towards the second half, the end of the second half, I mean, Reece James getting on the ball with space ahead of him on that right side, whipping in deliveries, in the last minute or so. Dangerous player, very dangerous player. And I thought he practically nullified Martinelli and Trossard today, two of Arsenal's wingers. Coming up against them. But it was the moment before Chelsea's equalizer that caught some attention, and that was Rice's apparent handball. And I know not a lot of people are going to be talking about it because right after it happened, Chelsea did score. But I honestly thought Rice got lucky there because it's weird. To me, I feel like I know the handball rule, but at the same time I don't because it just keeps changing. Rice was holding Hato. He's the one challenging for the ball. Hato's practically nowhere near, let's be honest. Rice lifts his arm for no apparent reason. He's jumping for it, but he jumps for it like this. It hits his arm, and Ryan makes a huge save to make it go out for another corner, which Chelsea scored from. But I feel like if Chelsea didn't score from that corner and they went into halftime 1-0 to Arsenal, I don't know, I feel like it'd be a huge talking point. I don't want to say Chelsea got lucky that they scored from the next corner because they deserved it. But I do feel like Declan Rice caught a little bit of life there. But anyways, Chelsea troubling Arsenal at their own game, scoring from a corner. Arsenal, unfortunately, conceding just before halftime. And it's weird because going into halftime 1-1, and it's once again Arsenal doing it to themselves. I mean, Chelsea were good, don't get me wrong. Chelsea, again, like I said, they tactically set up very well against Arsenal today. Again, it's Nkapia making a mistake at the front post, flicking it on, scoring an own goal. So it just kind of felt like, okay, here we go again. Here we go again with Arsenal. We saw it against Spurs. They did it to themselves. 1-1 at halftime. And it's the same story again. And I feel like this is just unnecessary pressure put on Arsenal for them to turn up in that second half. Because that second half, guys, Arsenal weren't great. I don't think they were great. I feel like they controlled the game a lot better in terms of keeping the ball better. But in terms of just chance creation, creating chances like from open play, Gyökeres, Eze, Martinelli when he came on, Saka wasn't great today as well. I feel like they have to do better. If they want to kill the game, if they want to put teams to the sword, they absolutely have to do better. Because again, they couldn't create anything out of open play, so they resort to set pieces. And again, it happened with Timber scoring from an Arsenal corner, Declan Rice with a great delivery. And this is where I'm going to get onto Sanchez, man. Oh my goodness. Bro, Sanchez, man. This guy, what is he doing? What on earth was he doing today? He was all over the place for both goals. Both corners, absolutely just doing ring around the rosy in the box. Couldn't see where the ball was, lost his footing, lost his positioning completely. And he unfortunately let Chelsea down today. Even besides the 2 goals, some of the early mistakes that he made, getting caught on the ball, playing out the back. The distribution, some of it was just flat, straight to the Arsenal player. Just a bit lackadaisical, lapse of concentration. And it's an unfortunate thing that we see with Sanchez because I feel like for a stretch of like 8 to 9 games, he's actually pretty decent. He doesn't really put a foot wrong. He just does his job. But in the big moments, we saw it against United with the clumsy red card. We've seen it against Arsenal twice now. It just feels like, when is it going to get good for this guy? When is he going to show consistent performances to show that he can play at a high level? Because I feel like shot stopping he's very good at. He has very good goalkeeper traits. But it's just a lapse of concentration where he's a bit too casual, takes it easy going, doesn't really focus for 90 minutes straight. Bit like what Ramsdale said as to why he left Arsenal, because he came out and said that he couldn't focus for 90 minutes straight. And obviously Arteta is like, yeah, get the hell out of my club. Because it's coming to that point where I really don't want to label someone as a liability, but Sanchez is heading to that territory, man. And I feel like to some Chelsea fans, he already is in that territory in big games. But nevertheless, Arsenal go 2-1 up. And from then on, it was game on until it wasn't. Because 5 minutes later, Martinelli's on the break. And Pedro Neto's chasing him. Keeps chasing him. Martinelli actually does pretty well to get away from him. But Pedro Neto, with the most clumsy challenge to take him down. And honestly, when he did that, I didn't know he was booked. I'm not going to lie. Apparently he got booked after the Timber scoring for dissent or whatever. Apparently he got booked. I didn't even see that. But when the ref blew the whistle to stop the play and Martinelli's through, I'm like, why would you stop it there? Because the ref stopped the game a couple times when Arsenal were on a break. But the ref blew the whistle and whips out the second yellow. I'm like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Pedro Neto getting sent off. And I'm just like, if I was a Chelsea fan, I'd be absolutely fuming. Because for the majority of this game, you're in it. You're still in it. Despite being 2-1 down, you're still in it. You could trouble that Arsenal backline. We saw that across 70 minutes. The Arsenal backline is there for the taking still. But then your players just let you down. It's so frustrating. And the amount of red cards Chelsea have this season, it's actually abysmal. So many games. Fofana against Burnley. Neto against Arsenal now. Sanchez against United. I mean, I can name so many. I've just forgotten because it's more than I can count on my fingers. How many times are we going to see Chelsea players just let them down? Because on another day, guys, this game could have easily ended 2-2. Chelsea could have easily gotten a result. And they just did it to themselves. And that's kind of the story of Chelsea all season, where they play decent, but it's the individual mistakes that just let them down. And we've seen it. It's a reoccurring theme all season. Because Arsenal today, let's be honest, guys, they weren't amazing. They had to grind out a win, and fair enough, they did so. But Arsenal weren't great today. Chelsea were there to do some damage at the Emirates today. They could have changed the narrative in the title race, but I mean, hey, they did it to themselves. And Declan Rice obviously came off in the 76th minute. He obviously seemed quite injured because he was limping around. So I feel like the fact that Rice was off, obviously Arsenal's control just went all over the place after that. Chelsea were still able to carve chances with 10 men. The Delap chance, João Pedro was obviously offside for that goal. The Reece James, he put in a great ball for Garnacho, I think it was for Hato. So many chances Chelsea were still able to create. The Caicedo shot, despite being 10 men down. But just imagine they had 11. If they had 11, I feel like there was actually something there for the taking. But it was their own doing. It was their own doing. Chelsea's own mistakes let them down today. But Arsenal did well to hold on, grind out the win. And I feel like nowadays, it's just come to that point. It doesn't matter about how you win. It doesn't matter, about how you play effectively. As long as you get the 3 points, that's what everyone's going to care about. And now, 9 games to go. Every game is going to feel like a final, because if we take a look at the table, it's getting tight, guys. It's getting very, very tight. My goodness. It is getting so tight. I mean, obviously, City have a game in hand. That's against Forest next week. But if they put this to 62, that game at the Etihad, I feel like everyone's going to be looking at that now. That game at the Etihad is practically the title decider. And that Carabao Cup final between Arsenal and City will also be huge in terms of mentality going into the run-in for the season. But United picking up a win today, putting them at third, which is huge, which puts Villa down after their horrendous loss to Wolves. But Chelsea, man, 2 wins in 5, that is not great. Losing today, drawing the last 2. They're just doing it to themselves, man. Individual mistakes are really letting them down. But I hopefully feel that they can get their act together before the Champions League knockouts. Because if they do this against PSG, boy, they're in trouble. They are in trouble. But anyways, just thought I'd make this quite short. Leave a like, subscribe if you guys are new. Let me know if you're a Chelsea fan, how you thought of the game, how you thought of the performance. And Arsenal, they just got to keep chipping away. They're so close. They're so close. Anyways, I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.